Hey guys, this is Mitch with FineBoy CGI, and today we're going to continue our Nakama tutorial series where I take you from zero to understanding all of the fundamentals of Nakama. And in this video, we're going to talk about how to do groups. So that's going to allow you to add users to like a guild or like a group setting. Then we're going to talk about doing chats and chatting between each other, so sending messages to each other. And finally, due to popular request, I'm going to talk about how to host your Nakama instance out on the internet so that you can play games with your friends, or of course you can release your game out to make it into a multiplayer game. So that's what I have in store for you guys today. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So this tutorial assumes that you already completed the previous tutorial where we actually integrated Nakama for the most part. So this one's going to be going over more of the features and things like that that are available to you. So let's go ahead and get started with that. And the first thing we're going to talk about is creating groups. So groups are basically like a guild or a team of people that want to play with each other multiple times, not necessarily as a party, but as an actual group. So after the game is ended and everything is done, you still have access to that group of people. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to hide our friends section because we're actually running out of space here. And I really should name all of these, but that's probably going to brick all of my code. So we'll go ahead and just hide that panel. We'll go ahead and add in a new panel like so. I'm going to go over here, make it about this big, give or take. I'm going to right click, add a child node. We'll add in a label like that. We're going to make it about this big, and we'll have a name parameter there. We'll go ahead and duplicate it and say description. And then we'll come in here, right click, add a child node, and we'll add in a line edit like so. And we'll make it about this big, give or take. We'll control duplicate that and we'll make it about this big. I mean, technically the description should be a little bit longer, but that's okay. We'll make it work for what we're going to do. So that's fine. And I'll just kind of organize this properly. Then we'll add in a button, and this button's going to allow us to create a group. Now I'm going to need multiple buttons, but for right now, we'll just do one, I think. So we'll go ahead and say create group like so. And I'll probably need to make this panel larger. To be honest, I'm running out of space here. So we'll go ahead and just make this a touch bit bigger like so. Now, when we want to create a group, all we have to do is if we grab this button, name it create group like so. We'll go into our node button down and we'll hook that to our control node just like that. Now you'll see when I hook it to the control node, it should create a create group button down function. It looks like I already did this in a previous section, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. That's my fault. That caught me off guard real quick. But to create a group, all we have to do is say client dot create group async, and then we can pass in our session like so. And then we have to pass in a name. Now, the name is whatever the name is that we put as our line edit. Now, if we take a look, we have our name right here. So we'll say group name and then group description like so. And then we'll go back to our script and we'll do $ group name, comma, or dot text, comma, $ group description dot text, comma, and then you'll see that they have the option for an avatar URL. Now, you don't have to supply one, but you can. And that's really cool because it basically would allow you to have some kind of URL for an image that you could load for their group. So I'm going to put that as empty, comma, and then you'll see that they have a language. So we'll say their main language is EN. It doesn't really matter necessarily, but it is a thing that exists. And actually, I'm messing up my little things here. We'll put an empty URL. We'll put a EN for the avatar title. And then you can choose whether or not it's an open or if it's not. So an open means if it's a public group. So if people can actually see it and index it. for other people. So if you say false, then it's a private group. So if you don't want it to be listable, which we'll discuss listing in a little bit, but it allows you to basically say, is this a listable group? So I'm going to say true because it makes sense to have a listable group. And then you can have a max number of members. Now, once this is set, you cannot change it. So make sure you set it to a value that you want. So if a guild can only have 64 members, then you set it to 64. If it's 100 members, then you can set it to 100. So in my case, I'm going to say 32 just because 32 is just a good round number. Now, after that, there is nothing else that we can do, so we'll go ahead and just say 32. Now, typically, this also returns a group API. So you could say var group is equal to await client asynchronous, and then we can just go ahead and print out that group. Now, you don't have to do this, but it is a way to get a hold of that object, if that makes sense. So if you needed to go ahead and make your group, visible or not visible or something like that, you could do that right here. So now if we go ahead and make sure that our Nakama instance is running. So if I take a look at my containers, you can see it is actually running. So there we go. We'll go ahead and hit play. And then we're going to go ahead and submit. We're going to connect to our game. We're going to call our group test group. Description, this is our test group, and we'll click create. Now you'll see that we have a error, group name must be set. So I must have messed up on my group name. So let's take a look. Panel 5 group name. Oh, I made a mistake because this is the original panel. I did some recording earlier that I didn't keep, but I never actually removed that panel. So we'll change this to panel 6, and then we'll go from there. So we'll refresh this and try this one more time. That's my fault. So we'll submit test group. This is a test group. Create group, and you'll see that we get a success right there. So now I'm going to navigate to 127 Nakama console right here. So we'll go to our 127.7351, and then we will connect into our Nakama group. If we go to groups, you will see there is our test group. And you can see this is what we have. If we take a look at our members, you can see that there is a super admin. So what in the world is a super admin? Well, a super admin is a person that has full control over that group. So this person, JJRBVWEXKI, is a super admin of that group. So what that means is that they have the ability to delete that group. And when you are a super admin, you have full control over that group. There are 4 different membership states. There's super admin, which means that you are basically God. You can do whatever you want to this group. You can delete people. You can do whatever you want. Basically, you can delete the group. And that's a big thing. Admin, which allows you to update your group and allow you to accept, kick, promote, delete, ban, or promote members. And then they have members, which allows you to actually have a regular group member. They don't have the ability to do anything. They cannot accept join requests, stuff like that. And then they have the join request mode, which basically is when a user wants to join, they need to be accepted. So you have to say, yes, I will accept you as a part of a group. And that's how you know the different states, if that makes sense. So if we go to our user management, we look for the JJR person. If we go into accounts, I have a bunch of usernames here because I've been doing a lot of testing on my end. But if I look for JJ, let me see. I think it's JJ. Let me take a look. Members, name, JJRB. JJRB. Well, that person, let me see. JJ, I have 71 accounts. So you can see I have a bunch of accounts because I've been doing a lot of testing on my end for my own stuff. And Nakama is being difficult, so let me refresh. JJRB. Well, apparently JJ doesn't exist within my vast number of people, so I'm not sure why it did that, but that's okay. There's probably a master account that it's using. Actually, it's right here, JJRB. Right here. So I'm not sure why it used this specific one. unless I logged in and created it with device authentication, which is possible, but that's okay. We'll figure that out in a minute. But that's basically how we create a group. Now you can see we also printed out a group as well. So you can see here, we have our creator ID, which is right here. The creator ID is DB. So this is the creator ID. So our creator is JJ. So we must have logged in with device authentication, which means I probably didn't reset my client authentication stuff. So let me take a look at that real quick. My apologies. I may not have reset some of my code so that it worked properly. Did user authentication instead of our device authentication. So my guess is that's probably what it is. So if I go to log in, yeah, right here, I'm doing a unique device ID right here, and I'm logging in with that socket connection. So that's what's going on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control K to comment that out, and I'm going to go ahead and log in with my username. So now I'm going to go in here and I'll reset this because it's going to be kind of difficult to have a group that exists that's not tied to an actual user. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll refresh, and then we're going to recreate that group just because it makes more sense. So I'll say test group description. This is a test group, and we'll go ahead and create that group. Now, if we take a look at our Nakama console, you will see that because this was created by test, that person is the super admin. So whoever creates the group gets super admin status. Now, in order to add users, it's actually relatively easy. All we need to do is go into our project here, and you can see right here, we have the ability to create a group. So we'll just go ahead and duplicate this, and we will come down here and we'll right click disconnect. We're going to go in here, connect, and say on add user. We'll say add underscore user underscore to group, like so, button down, and we'll go ahead and connect that. Now I'm going to rename this to add user to group. So with this, for us to be able to add users to group, it's actually really easy. All we need to do is pass in the group ID that we want to add ourselves to. So unfortunately, we have to actually pull that user identifier. So if you look at this, you can see inside of our groups, we have a user ID right here. This is the identifier that we need to give them to be able to add ourselves to that group. So if we come in here and copy this, we can come down here, go back into Godot, and then basically just say await client dot join group async, and then do session, comma, and then we'll just pass in that group identifier. Now, if we come in here and we hit play, you'll see in a second, we'll go ahead and log in as test2. We will type test. I mean, it doesn't really matter. And you can see the text here is wrong, but that's okay. We'll click create group, which is technically add group. And you'll see that we get an authorization token right here. We got a 404 group not found. So my guess is that I have the wrong identifier. Go to group ID, I do. So we'll go ahead and copy that, and we'll go back here. We'll change this guy like so, paste, Control S. And the nice thing about Godot is that if you just change the code in here, you can just click that and you can see that it should work. And that's because Godot is a non-compiled language, so you can actually get away with changing it and re-executing the code. So now if you look at members, you can see test2 is now a member. Now you might be wondering, okay, so anybody can join my group. Yes, anyone can join your group as long as it is public. If it's not public, then you have to be approved. So that's where the difference comes in. So if I come in here, I remove test2, I go to details, and I change this to not open, and I save it. Now, if I go ahead and I hit create group, or I guess connect to the group, you can see that there is a join request. And that means that I have to approve that before they can be a part of the group. So the question is, how do you actually accept that join request? Well, to accept a join request, what you need to do is you need to come in here and actually code out a small subroutine. First thing first, I'm going to come in here and change this to add join group like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this guy, drag this guy down like so. And I'm going to say add user to group like so. And if I just hit enter, that will help with formatting this button a little bit better. Now we'll pull this name parameter to allow ourselves to actually, go from there. And this should probably be called join group. So it'll be fine, I guess, for now, but it's just something I'm not a huge fan of, but that's okay. So we'll go ahead and click node, right click, disconnect, connect, and then we'll go ahead and create that little function there. Now, to accept a join request, you need to be able to list your groups or your users inside of that group. And that's really easy to do. We can basically just say var users is equal to await client dot list group users async like that. We can pass in our session token, and then we can pass in our group ID. Now our group ID is right here. So we'll go ahead and copy that and paste it. And then we'll hit comma, and then we can actually have a different state. So this is where that 1, 2, or I guess 0, 1, 2, and 3 is useful. If you wanted to, you could list everyone that is a member of the group, everyone that's waiting to join the group, and anybody that's a super user or an admin, just by changing this from 0 through 3. In our case, we're going to be grabbing all the people that are awaiting for their joins. You can see the state is 3. So we will go ahead and do that. And then all we need to do is come in here and say for user in users dot group underscore users colon var u is equal to user dot user, and then await client dot add group users async, pass in our session right here, comma, what our group ID is, which in this case is this guy right here. So we'll pass that guy in, comma, and then we'll pass in you, and that will go ahead and add that person. So now if I refresh and I go add user to group, so if I submit, I log in as the test user, and I click add user to group, you'll see that we got an error here, unable to convert argument 3 to pack string array. So u is not correct. So let's take a look at what u is real quick. I don't think there's really an easy way to handle this without going bracket, and then passing in .id, and then just using their ID. I think that will work. It's not the most ideal way to fix it, but if I log in, I hit add user, you should see a nice request here, and then we'll go ahead and refresh this, and you can see that they are now a member. And that's because when we built the group, we made it a private group. Now you might be wondering, is there a way for us to make a group private or public through code, right? So that way it doesn't have to happen immediately on start. And the answer to your question is yes, you can actually do that pretty easily. All you need to do is come in here, go in here. Let's grab this, make it slightly bigger. Again, the group section is going to be very large for this. So we'll add in a checkbox here like so, and we'll call it open like that. And then we're going to add in a toggle switch. So I'll just put this right here for right now. We'll call it open. That's fine. And then we'll go ahead and say on button down, or I guess on toggled. We'll toggle this on our control node. And basically when it gets toggled, it'll show you yes or no. So we'll say await client dot update group asynchronously. We'll pass in our session token, comma, our group ID, which is this guy right here. And we'll talk about how to get that group ID through code in a second, comma, and then the name of the group, which I'll pass in null because I don't want to change it. And then we'll pass in toggled underscore on like that. And you'll see that if I come in here and I submit and then I click open, you'll see if we refresh our Nakama instance here, so we'll refresh this page, you'll see it's not open. If we close it, it should hopefully do it real quick. Maybe not. Let's take a look. Let's do a breakpoint here. I could just be crazy. So if I come in here, toggle, response code 400, specify at least one field to update. Let's see if we come in here, comma, p name, p description, variant null. So null, comma, description, null, comma, avatar, null, comma, language tag, en, comma. Now this is how you update any of your parameters, by the way. So now we have our p open. I think that's why toggled on, and you can see here we have null, null, null. So this is the username, right? The name of the group, the description of the group, and the whether or not it's open or not. So you can actually really play around here and update any of these values. So now if we hit play, in theory, it should just work. So we'll come in here, submit, we do that, and then we take a look at our group here. We refresh, you'll see that open is now on. If we set it to off and we refresh, you'll see that it is now closed. So that's how you can open and close it. And that's really how you can update any of these values. So if I came in here, if I come back to Godot here, and I grab my description, I believe that's name, description, avatar, URL. So if I name this the Strong Gamers, and then I change the description to we are the Strong Gamers, exclamation point. If I come in here and I hit this little toggle here, well, our session got DC'd, so let me refresh this guy real quick. Let me relog in, and then I'll change it. So now it's going to be open, and the titles and everything has been changed. Strong Gamers, we are the Strong Gamers. So that's how you can update those values. Now, again, typically you wouldn't use a toggle switch to do this. I'm just showing you guys how to do that so I can show you the open and close really quickly. You can see now it's closed. So that's how you can update that group visibility. That's how you can update the group values, information values for your group. Now, something else that's pretty big and pretty important to know is how to actually list groups. So Nakama groups are a resource like anything else, right? So you can actually list them and index them and pull back information using them. So what does that mean? Well, that means that you can use what's called list groups asynchronously to actually list out your groups. So if I come in here, I can show you guys how that works. So I'm going to right click, add in a panel like so. I'll drag this guy over here like this. And I will make an H box container, or I guess it'd be a V box container like so. And I'll make that full rect so that way it maximizes the full screen. Now, granted, that being said, we only have one group right now, so we kind of need to make multiple groups for us to be able to see them all, but we can at least show how that works. So if we come in here, I grab this add user to group button, I duplicate it, bring it down here, and I type list groups like so. And then I'm going to grab this description, duplicate it, pull it down here. And this is going to be group query like so. I'll change this to list groups. And I'll change this to group query. Now, what we can do is hit Control S. We can go into scripting. We can grab our list group, go to node, right click disconnect, right click connect, and connect it. Now, what we could do when we want to list our groups is we can set up a limit. So we can say var limit is equal to, let's say, 10. Now, we don't have 10 groups to list, but we'll use that as a default value. Then we'll say var result is equal to await client dot list groups async. Now you'll need to pass in your session just like usual, and then you'll need to pass in some kind of name that you're trying to search up. Now this is a variant, so of course you can, get back whatever you're looking for. So in my case, I'm going to hit $ group query dot text, and that'll let me have that limit. And then we'll pass in our limit, which by the way does default to 10. Now they have a cursor value, and that cursor value allows you to say, I want the next 10. So think of it kind of like this. When you do your query, you're going to pull back the first 10. But what happens if the person doesn't see the group that they want on the first 10? Well, that's where the cursor value comes in. So you can hit 0, make that cursor value of 0. Language tag will allow you to pick a language. In my case, I'm going to do EN. And again, you don't have to do that, but it's going to filter out any groups that are not English. You can see right here, language EN. So that's going to allow you to have that limiting factor, right? Because if they're Spanish, you don't want to necessarily show them up if they're looking for an English group. If they speak English, not Spanish, it's going to be a problem. And then you can look up members, which allows you to pick members. I'm going to pass in null for that. And then you could choose whether or not it's an open group or not. So a lot of times when you're doing groups, you might want to check to see if it's a public group, not a private group. Because sometimes if you have a group like a guild and you don't want people to see your guild, you probably should make sure that that is false or true, depending on your use case. So I'll make it true. And that's pretty much everything that you need to know here. Now, with this, we should be relatively good to go. So now we could basically will have our results. We can say for group in result dot groups like that. And then we can basically come in and print out our groups. So you can see that we can go print group dot name like that. And from here, we should be relatively good to go. So now we can hit play. We can log in as test. We can come in here and say, I believe our group name is Strong Gamers. So we can say strong and list groups, and it should come back. Well, it's not happy. So that's not a good thing. Our P cursor, query parameters, strong, that's fine. Nakama serialize, escape. Cannot convert argument 1 from int to string. I wonder if it's mad because our cursor is an int. I think there's an issue here with how they have their stuff set up. So what if we come back here and we do null instead? So if we come in here, null, just to see if that fixes the problem. So we'll come in here, we'll type strong. And it's still mad. Oh, that's because I didn't log in. So that's fair. That's understandable. So we'll log in. We will say strong, list groups. And you can see that we get a 400. The error name filter cannot be combined with any other filter. So it looks like, according to Nakama's documentation, you can combine them, but I guess you can't inside of here. So let's try that and see if that fixes it. Because according to our documentation, you can do this, but I guess we can't. So let's try that. So we'll hit list groups, and you will see that we get an authorization bearing right here. I don't know if that came back with really anything. So let me see what happens if I list groups. Let's see what our result comes back with after I drop a breakpoint here. And it did. It came back with nothing. So Nakama is not doing what I want it to do because, of course, it's not. Welcome to programming. Let's see what happens if I do capital S. It's probably capital case sensitive. So we'll come in here and we'll take a look at our result. Still got nothing back. So we'll continue through. What happens if I do a %sign and see if that gives us something back now? Because it might be that it needs to be a query of some description. So we can check that out real quick. Yep, it needs to be a query. So you can see it pulled back the one that we're looking for. So it pulled back our group. So when you do a text, just be aware of that. You're going to need to make it into an actual query instead. So you need to add that %sign at the end. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, you'll see when I hit play, it's going to print out strong gamers right there. So that's basically how you can list and filter your groups. So that allows us to see those groups and hunt down their identifier. Because if you look, you can see when I list the groups, you can see when I come in here and I take a look at my result here, the group I come back with has their identifier right here. So if you know where their if you know their name, you can pull back their ID. So that's how we would populate all these other values right here, is by listing it and then pulling back that group information. Now, since we can pull this information, that means that we can actually come in here and use that info on our panels and things like that. So what we could do is we could come in here and list out their information and populate it in a VBox container. So we could do is we could go var VBox is equal to VBox container.new, like that. And then if I do this correctly, equals VBox container.new. And then we could come in here and do the same thing, but for labels. So we can say label. So var name label is equal to a label dot new, like that. And then name label dot text is equal to, if we take a look at this right here, we can go name. So it would be group dot, let's take a look at this. What is result.groups? Let's see. Result.groups. So it's going to come back with this. So then it would be .name, like that. And then we could say VBox add child, and then we could add our name label as a part of that child. And then we can come in here and say $sign VBox, and we can find out which panel is ours, which arguably we should come up with a better naming convention here, but that's fine. Add child, and we could add in our VBox right here, like that. And that would allow us to effectively add it as a child for our project. And then if we refresh this, in theory, providing that this is going to work, and I don't know if it's going to work, this is kind of me coding this a little bit off the cuff, we can hit list groups, and you can see that we now have strong gamers there. So that's something that we can actually do and pull back their information. So that could be really useful for us to set up for like a selection system or something like that. And speaking of that, what we could do is we could come in here and say var hbox is equal to hbox container.new, like so. And then we can do hbox dot, let's see, if we bring this down here, instead of doing vbox dot add, we could do hbox, and then we could add our vbox dot add child hbox, like so. And then what that means is that we could add in a button. And I know this is kind of weird because I'm actually coding a component instead of doing it the other way. But one of the big things that people have asked me is if you could actually do it this way. And I want to cover that and show you guys, yeah, you can actually build interface elements inside of code and then actually have it exist. So that's kind of what I'm showing here. So if we come in here and say var button is equal to button.new, like so, then we can come in here and do button.text is equal to select group, like that. And then we can come in here and say hbox.add child button, like that. And then we can add that hbox. And that should allow us to have all of that information that we were looking for before right here. So if we hit submit list groups, you can see we have a button right here. So now we can basically connect its on button click right here. So you can say button dot button down, like that, dot connect, and then we could just say, and here we could call out a function. So if I come in here and say func on group select button down, and I can pass in the group like that, and I could come in here and do dot connect, and we could do what's called binding. And binding is actually really cool. So we could say on group select button like that, dot bind, and then I can bind parameters. So I can actually come in here and bind group. And now if we come in here and we print out that group, you'll see, providing that we did this correctly. And I know that this is like way beyond what the actual tutorial is, but I think that this is pretty cool. So I figured I would show it off. If we do this, we can come in here and list our groups and then select a group, and you'll see that it passes in that information right there. It binds the parameters. So you could actually come in here and set a selected group parameter right here, and there you go. It would actually work. So what we could do is we could come in here and say all the way up here, set our var selected group, and then we could come down here and just say selected group is equal to group, like that. And then we could come in here and do, I believe it's group dot ID. So you could come in here and go selected group dot ID, like that. Copy this bad boy, go like this, paste and paste and paste, and then you would be able to effectively update the values in there without needing to actually have that data. So if I come in here, I list my groups. Well, first I need to actually hook up my session really quick. So if I submit that, there we go. I list my groups, I select it. Now I have that selected. I can come in here and do a open, and you will see that if I come in here and I refresh this, you'll see that that worked. And that's because we bound that parameter right here. Well, if I can find it right here to actually work. So that's a way that we can go about making a group selection system relatively simple. And that's how we can actually list our groups as well. So I know that that's kind of a complicated way to show it, but I figured that it was an interesting way to approach it, and I figured you guys would appreciate that. So now the question is, what if we want to promote a user, or maybe demote a user, or kick or ban a user from our group? Well, in order to do that, first we need to actually get the user ID of that person. So you can see here, this person is a member, and we want to get that user ID back. So if we come back to Godot here, and we go ahead and come down here, we need to basically get a username, go and fetch their ID, and then basically promote or demote that person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click my panel. I'm going to add in a line edit like so. I'm going to drag this guy down here. We'll go like this, make it about, I don't know, about that big. We'll come in here. We'll say user to manage, we'll say. And then we'll come in here and hopefully we won't run out of space. If we do, we'll figure something out. But let's right click, add in a child node. Let's add in a button. We'll add in a button for promoting right here, like so. And if I think about it for a second with groups, we need to promote, demote, kick, and ban somebody, and then also leave that group. So we'll need to figure out a way to give ourselves a little bit more space here because I'm running out. So maybe I can drag this guy up, butt it up a little bit closer, drag this guy down, give ourselves a little bit more space. But we can promote, duplicate, kick, demote, and then I believe we would need to ban somebody. And then finally, the last interaction that we need to do is to actually come in here and leave. So we could just come over. Goodness, we're running out of space here. We have so much functionality here. It's actually hard to make the space. So we'll drag this guy down a tiny bit, maybe give ourselves a bit more space over here. Drag this guy over like so. There we go. And we can change this one to leave group like that. Now, when we want to promote a user, let's change the name of this to promote user, kick user, demote user, and ban user like that. And then leave group. So I'm going to go ahead and grab promote user, and I'm going to change my line edit to user to manage, and then I'll click on promote user. We're going to go ahead and connect that to our Nakama controller here. We'll come down here and we'll basically go ahead and promote a user. So first things first, we need to actually get our user account. Now, unfortunately, you need to actually go and fetch that user account. So first we'll say var user is type Nakama API dot API users is equal to await client dot get users async. And then we can come in here and go session. So we could pass in that session. And then we need to pass in IDs. So when you do this, you can pass in IDs or usernames. In our case, we're going to pass in a username, but you can pass in their actual ID as well. So I'm just going to pass in a blank. And then for the username, I'll just pass in a single parameter. And that's going to be $user to manage .text, comma, and you'll see that they also have a Facebook ID. In this case, we'll pass in null. We don't really have a Facebook ID to manage a user, but they do separate that out. And I'm not really sure why they do that, but that's a thing. So it's just something to keep in mind. Now, what we can do is say for you in users dot users, and that's a really bad way. So we'll say result, and then we'll just do result.users. That's going to be a little bit better than what we're doing right now. Now, once we do this, we have the actual user information. So that's how you pull back that user's information. So you can actually just do u.id, and that will be their identification, right? That'll be their actual information. So what we can do is we can come in here and promote that user. So we'll come in here and say await client dot promote user in group async. You can pass in our session token, and then we can pass in our group ID. So in our case, that's going to be our selected group.id, comma, and I believe it's selected group.id. Let me double check really quick because sometimes I forget things. It is, and then we have to pass in a user identifier. So that's going to be u.id, like that. And now, if we go ahead and hit play, you'll see in a second that if I connect to this and then I list my groups, I select my group, and then I type in test2 and I click promote, Well, we have an error. So the error is cannot convert argument 3 from string to a packed array. And that's because this can be a group of users. It's not actually just one group. It's actually multiple people. So we can go ahead and do that and then try it again. So it's because we can actually have multiples of somebody. So we'll go like that. We'll submit. We'll list our groups, select group, test 2. We'll promote that person. You'll see that that looks like that was successful. We'll head back to our Nakama console. We'll refresh, and you will see that this person is now an admin. So that's huge because it's going to allow us to be able to create admins. And now if we click it a second time, you'll see if we refresh, they are now a super admin. That means that they can delete this group if they want to. Now the question might be, okay, so I can promote users. How do I demote them, right? Well, if we come in here, we go in right here, we go into demote user, button down. Let's connect that real quick. We come in here and basically copy and paste this code. So we'll just copy this guy, paste it. And instead of promote, we can just pass in demote. Easy enough. And same thing for kick user, right? We could just kind of bring that in and let's do ban user as well, right? So we'll just bring that in as well. If we copy this guy, we can copy, paste, and paste because they're all the exact same functionality. So we can come in here and say kick group users and then ban group users. And now if I refresh this, you'll see if I submit, list groups, select my group, test 2, I go demote, you'll see that that worked. If we come over here, we refresh our users right here, you'll see that they are now an admin. And then I can go ahead and ban a user, and you'll see non-existent function, ban groups. That's probably my fault. Group users async. And it looks like you actually can't ban a user, so we'll remove that. That's my fault. I was reading the documentation earlier, but it looks like it got removed. So you're not actually able to ban a user anymore from a group. So we'll come in here. We'll go ahead and type submit, list our groups, select our group. We'll go to test 2. We'll go ahead and demote the user. So you'll see if we refresh, they are an admin. If we come in here, we can go ahead and kick them. And then if we refresh, you will see they have been removed from that group. And that's basically how you can actually manage your users in here. And you can also delete a group and leave a group. So if we want to leave a group, we can come in here and go into our stuff here. We can click on leave group, button down, on leave button down. We'll connect that. And to leave a group, it's actually relatively simple. All we need to do is type await client dot leave group async. We'll pass in our session, and then we'll pass in our group ID, which is going to be our selected group.id. Now, this will allow us to leave our group. But the problem is that if I leave my group, I will actually not have any more users in that group. So what I'll do is I'll log in as test 2. I will come in here and pass in my group name. If I remember correctly, it's if we list groups, we can select the group, join group, and then you should see that we will join that group. So you'll see as a member, we can refresh, and there we go. We're in that group. And now we can come in here and say leave group. And then if we refresh, we have left that group right there. And now we can actually safely delete our group, right? Because we now have shown that that section works. That's how you leave a group. It's actually really easy. You just do leave group asynchronously. So now what happens if you want to delete a group? Well, we're going to need an additional button for that. So let's duplicate our leave group. We'll just pull it down here, I guess. We're kind of running out of space here. So I'll just put it right here. I'll move open over. We'll grab leave group and we'll put delete group. Now, in order to delete a group, we'll disconnect this, connect. In order to delete a group, it's actually really simple as well. So when you delete a group, all you need to do is type client await client dot delete group async. And then you can pass in the session and the selected group dot ID. And that's literally all you need to do. So now if I refresh my screen here, I log in as test the super admin, and then we'll log in as test. We'll come in here, we'll log in as test2, we'll submit. We will go ahead and hit list groups. We'll select that group. We're going to join that group really quick. And remember, because this is an open group, that person should be able to just join. There we go. So the person has joined. And now you'll see if I go in as test2 right here, and I go ahead and I click delete group, which this is leave group, but it's delete group in our code, you'll see request has returned response 400. Group not found, or you are not allowed to delete. And the reason why is because that person does not have the capability to delete this group. You can see it's still here. However, if I come in here as test or as my super admin and I log in and I click list groups, I select my group, and then I click delete group, you'll see if we go back to groups, it has now been removed. And that's basically everything that you need to know about groups. Now, when it comes to chats, which is actually a whole feature inside of Nakama, you can actually build chat rooms right inside of Nakama. So when it comes to chats, how do we actually get that to work? Well, first things first, we are majorly out of space. So I am going to hide the group section. As you can see, we have all sorts of different areas here where we can actually do our Nakama work here. So I'm actually just going to come in here and just start hiding a lot of this because we're running out of space here. So I'll hide this panel, and there we go. So when it comes to chats, we have 3 different types of chats, and we'll talk about all 3 of them and how to send messages and stuff like that. But we have 3 different chat types. We have dynamic rooms, group chats, and direct chats. Okay. And we'll talk about the group chats when we get there. But one of the big ones that a lot of people like is the dynamic rooms. The dynamic rooms is basically a random room that gets created for a temporary time span, and it only stays open as long as there are people in that chat room. So the nice thing about it is, let's say you have a match or something like that, you could put people in that temporary room and then have people communicate, and then once the match is over, that room just gets dissolved over time. Whereas something like a group chat, that stays for as long as the group exists. And then they also have direct chats, which is basically one-on-one communications between people, which persist once again forever. So in order to do dynamic rooms, let's first right-click, add in a child node. Let's add in a panel here, and let's make it about this big. Now, we're going to have to build a whole chat system, so this will take a little bit of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click, add in a child node. I'm going to add in a button. I'm going to right click, add a child node, add in a line edit right here. We're going to make the line edit about yay big, give or take, if my mouse will let me. We'll do that. We'll add in a button, again providing that I can click on this. There we go. We'll make it about yay big, and for our line edit, we'll just say chat name like that. And then we'll come in here and say join chat. Now, you could automate this. As soon as a person goes into a match, you could actually go set up the room name and automatically have them join. But in this case, we're going to manually do it. That way you guys get the experience of how it works. So what we'll do is we'll change this to join chat room like that. And then the line edit will be chat name like that. And then I'm going to come in here, go over here, button down, and then I will hit connect. Now, when we want to join a chat room, all we have to do is come up with a room name, if it's persistent, if it's hidden, and if it is a room type. So I will show you all of those things. So first things first, let's go var channel is equal to await socket dot join chat asynchronously. Now, what this is going to do is we're going to have a target. Now, that target is what the name of that chat room is going to be. In this case, we'll just say, actually, we already have a title right here, right? So $chat name dot text comma, and then you'll see that we have an int type. So what does that actually take? What is the type? Well, the type is a Nakama socket chat type, or a channel type. So we'll say var type is equal to Nakama socket dot channel type dot, and you'll see that we have different types: direct message, group, and room. And each one has a different use. So thankfully, the code is basically the same, but what matters is if it is going to be a room, if it's going to be a group, or if it's going to be a direct message. In our case, it's going to be a room. So I'm going to come in here and say type, comma, and then if it's persistent, so in our case, we don't want it to be persistent, so false, comma, and then if it's hidden, and we'll say false. We want it to make it a public messaging chat so people can actually go in and message each other and not have to authenticate or be added to that chat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to print that chat information. So print channel like that. Now, this will basically print out our chat's information. So if I refresh this and I run this, if I join and I say test and I join, you'll see that we now have a chat that is right here. You can see it has the ID 1. It has ID here. It says there's a user test. User ID is this. Session ID is this. So we can get all the people that are inside of that chat right there. Now, if somebody else joins, test 2, submit, and then they go test and they join, you can see here that we also joined channel ID 2, user presence, session this, status, user test. So we just got back that user's account information, right? So we got test and test 2 in this chat with each other. And that's basically what these guys are saying here. Now, in order to send a message, you need to actually be able to receive that message, right? So let's go to our script here and let's scroll all the way up to the top. And the reason why I'm scrolling all the way up to the top is because we need to subscribe when we create our socket to the ability to actually get messages. So what we need to do is go find where our socket gets created, which is right here. So we'll come in here and we'll say socket dot, and providing that Godot wants to be nice to me, it will autocomplete, please. Maybe not. Well, we'll hit dot received underscore channel underscore message dot connect, like that. And then we'll pass in a callable. So what this is going to be is it's just going to be a very basic function that prints out that message currently, at least. So we'll say func underscore on underscore channel on channel message, like that. And we'll pass in a message. Now, this could be a type if you want it to be, which is going to be a Nakama API dot API channel message, like that. And then we could just go ahead and print that message. And there we go. Now we're going to connect that message. So we'll just pass on channel message like that. And that will actually pass that to this guy right here. And we'll go ahead and send out that signal. Now, when we do our message, when we want to send a message, we need to actually create a panel for that. So let's come in here. Let's right click our panel and add in another panel like so. I'm going to drag this guy over here, make it about this big, give or take. And we're going to create a very basic message block system. So it's going to be pretty ugly. My apologies, but I want to try to get this to work as quickly as humanly possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a line edit like so. I'm going to make this go on the bottom stretched across. I'm going to pull this back, right click, add a child node. We'll add in a button. I'm going to snap that guy right in the bottom right, where we'll make it about, if I can click on it, about yay big. We'll put a send, or maybe just like an arrow like that. I think that'll work. We'll put a placeholder chat text here. We'll type this as chat text. We'll make the panel title chat, and then we'll make the button submit chat like that. I'm going to go ahead and right click, add a child node, and I'm going to add in I am brain farting on what it is. It is a text edit like that. We'll make it full screen, so full rect, and we'll make it about yay big. That'll go ahead and make it so that it's kind of scalable and, easy to use. Now, inside of here, I'll scroll down and I will do auto wrap. That's fine. So that means that if I put in a bunch of text here, it's going to auto wrap. So you can see if I do wrap mode boundary, it will go ahead and wrap that. And then I will turn on scroll as well. So if this continues, so we'll control C, control V, we'll paste it. You'll see that it's going to scroll. We also we'll want to shut off editable. And I think that will work because I think this is placeholder text. So if I come in here and we paste this text in, this will allow us to scroll. I'm curious if we can make it follow the actual scrolling, but I don't think we can. I know there's a way to do it. It's been a while since I've done it, but I think I'll just go ahead and skip that part. But there is a way to make it so it automatically scrolls to the bottom, but that's okay right now. So this is basically what our chat setup is going to be. It's going to be relatively simple, but it's going to be something that we can at least use. Now I'm going to grab my submit chat button. I'm going to go to node button down. I'm going to connect that to my submit chat button. Now, when we want to do a message, right? We want to send a message. We can come in here and say var await socket dot write chat message asynchronous. Now this is going to require a ID. So we have to actually have some kind of chat name. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and grab this guy right here, copy it, and paste it. It's not the most ideal situation because once you're connected to that channel, you should probably just be connected to that channel, right? Instead of passing in this value here. But we can basically throw a value up at the top and basically just save it across different functions, and that would solve this problem. But for right now, we'll go ahead and do this. And then we need to pass in our message content. So what we can do is do $ chat text dot text like that. Now, I think we should probably change this to text edit instead. Just do chat text box. That way we actually have that value. Now, if we hit play and we go ahead and hit play, if we come in here, we both submit join test, test number 2, submit join test. If we send a text, test, send, you'll see that it is very mad at us. Cannot convert argument 2 from string to dictionary. So it's going to require a dictionary for us to be able to do that. So what we need to do is we need to pass in an actual dictionary of objects. So we can come in here, pass in this dictionary like so, and go quote message colon that. And the reason why we have to do this is because we can actually do what's called emotes, right? And emotes are sent via JSON data. So that's the reason why it requires it to be a dictionary. It's so that we can actually send over emote information. Now, I'm not going to cover that just because there's a whole like loading emotes and stuff like that that you need to do. And that's way beyond the basics of this tutorial. So if you guys want to look at that, you guys can go check out their real-time chatting section and they'll go over that. But I'll go ahead and hit submit test 2, submit, join test, test, send. And you'll see that we actually get an error. So it says invalid chat identifier. So what's going on here, right? Well, if you take a look at your chat here, if we take a look at our chat, you'll see that our chat actually has an identifier, ID2. You see that? So when you have a chat, it actually has an identifier associated with that chat. And so you don't want to pass in the title of the chat. You want to pass in the identifier. You can see that we have a channel right here. So if I go channel.id, we can go ahead and refresh this guy and go submit, test, submit. And you'll see that we are now printing out, and you will see that we have an ID right here. I added channel ID in post, so that way it was nice and quick. But you can see right here, channel ID is 2 ... test. So 2 is the ID of the chat, and test is the actual ID that we gave it. So we need to pass that value in right here for us to be able to send messages. So what we can do is we can come in here, copy this var channel, go all the way up to the top, and go var current channel like that. And then we can go all the way back down to the bottom and do current channel is equal to that. And then we'll go ahead and copy this. We'll paste it right here, .id, and then we can go ahead and do current channel.id right here as well. Now, what that will do is that it should allow us to actually send it to the proper ID. So we'll hit submit, test2, submit, test, join, test, join, test, send. And you should see right here, we no longer have an error, but instead we have an actual message right here. I probably should not have used the word test. I should probably use this is a test message. That way we can actually see what it is. And you can see here that I send a message, and you see right here, channel ID, test code is 0, content message, this is a test message. And that's basically how we can send and receive messages. Now, the nice thing is that since we typed our message section, and unfortunately this is getting pretty large, so I might want to abstract some of this out. But if we go to right here where our on-channel message is at, we have our different messages that we can message information here that we can actually use. So if we type message dot, you'll see that it's going to automatically give us some information here that we can work with. So you can see that we have sender ID, username, all sorts of information. So the nice thing is I can come in here and I can go $ chat text box dot text plus equals message dot username plus colon space plus message dot, and then if we take a look, there should be a content dot message like that. Like that. And we should probably also go ahead and pass in a new line because we want the user to have a new line here. Now, so let's try this. Var content is equal to message.content. And then I wonder if content.message will work instead. Okay, there we go. We'll try that and see if that works. Also, I'm going to want to put a new line at the end of this. So we'll go ahead and do that /n for a new line. That way, every time somebody sends a message, it's going to be a new lined message. And now if I refresh this, in theory, this should work. So we'll go ahead and do submit, test, join, test 2, submit, test, join, test, send. And it is very unhappy. So let's take a look. You can see the content here is a string data. So it looks like we're going to need to JSON parse this information. So we'll go JSON.parse string, and we'll go ahead and pass that in. And there we go. And that should fix that problem.
Basically, content is a JSON value. So that's something that I didn't think about. I'm talking without thinking as I'm doing this tutorial. So forgive me, but we need to actually parse that data. So now if we hit send, you'll see test, test, test. This is a test message like so. Test 2, this is a test message. And that's basically how you could do a very basic communication system. So now the question is, okay, great. That's fine. But how do I actually do group chats? And in order to do group chats, what we need to do is we need to come in here and we need to go ahead and grab another join chat here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to unhide my group section, and I guess I'll just move it over so we have a little bit more space. Let's grab this guy. We'll drag him over like this. It's getting a little on the cramped side with our setup here. So I might need to readjust some stuff, but I don't think I can fit it really up here. So we'll just kind of push it over here, and that should just work. I mean, it's a little tight, but it will work for the demonstration we're trying to do here. So if I grab this guy here, I right click, disconnect inspector, change this to join group chat like so. When you want to do a group chat, all you got to do is come in and basically, if I move this guy over, there we go. All you really need to do is you need to come in here, connect your button down. So go ahead and connect that over here. And then we can come in here and basically just grab this exact code right here. It's almost a duplication, right? It's almost exactly the same. We'll just drop that guy in there. And all we really need to do is come in here, and when we do our join socket asynchronously, we just basically need to pass in our group ID. So we'll say, and I believe we have a group, if I remember correctly. So selected group.id, and then we can pass in type. For persistence, we're going to want to say true because we want to keep that group around, right? And then we want it to be persistent, and we also want to change this to a type group chat. And then what we can do is we can come in here, hit play, come over here, submit, test. We will go ahead and create a group. So that way now our group actually exists. So if we refresh our groups, I'll have to relog in because this is another recording session. And you can see we now have a test group and we are now a part of it. Now from here, we can join that group with test 2. So we'll come in here, and I already did this one. So we'll do test 2, test, join group. And it got mad at me because our selected group is not correct, and that's my fault. So that's totally fine. So I will have to refresh real quick. So we'll say submit test. We will go ahead and list our groups. We'll select our test group. We'll do test 2, list our groups, select it, join that group. And then when we join our chat, we could just join group chat, and then test, and you will see that this guy now gets it. And if we go, this is a test message, and we send that guy, you can see that that message gets sent. Now you might be going, okay, so why does this matter? Right? What is the benefit of a group chat versus a dynamic chat? Well, where a group chat matters and why it's important is because you can do what's called listing the message history. So because it's a persistent chat, we're going to be able to pull back all of that information. So the reason why that's cool is because we can come in here and we can say, okay, when the user joins a group, which we'll have to scroll down here to right here, and we'll need to go ahead and come in here and list out that information. So we'll say var result is equal to await client dot list channel messages asynchronous. We'll pass in our session, and then we'll pass in our currently selected groups. So selected group.id. We could pass in a limit value. So in our case, we'll just do 100. That's a very decent value. forward, basically forward is forward or backwards, right? So we can grab the oldest or the newest, and that's what forward is forward is the newest. So we'll say forward. So we'll say true, comma, and then I believe they have a cursor value as well. And cursor is, if I remember correctly, it's defaulted. Let's double check really quick. If we hit comma, cursor variance is null. So cursor allows you to say, I want you to start at this point. So if you're picking up the next 100 values, let's say you have 500 messages, you can pass in number 200 and then it'll grab from 200 to 300, if that makes sense. So in our case, I'll just leave that as null because it's just going to be easier for us to work with it. And now we can go for message in result.message like that, messages like that, and then we can basically just go exactly what we did before. So we can come up here and grab, if you remember how we actually parsed out our data, which arguably I should move this down closer to my actual message functionality. So let's go ahead and just do that really quick. We'll come down here and just drop it right. Let's see. This is group stuff. This is chat stuff. So we'll go ahead and just drop it right there. And that'll just kind of keep it within the group area. So that way I can basically come in here and do this and say chat room code right here. And that'll give me somewhere to actually look at this. Now, what we could do is we could basically just grab this, copy it, and paste. And that's all we need to do. And then in theory, this should just work. So now if we hit play, in theory, if we're lucky, it will work. So we'll go here. We'll say list groups, select group, join group chat, and we got an error message. Return response, invalid channel ID. So we have a failure here that says that our channel ID is incorrect. So let's see. Join chat asynchronously, list channel messages. That should be correct. Is it printing out what I expect? Let's see. So I don't think that this worked 100% here. So let's try submitting list groups, select group. That should select our group. And then I should be able to join group chat, but it did not take it. So the question is it because I failed to join the group chat or did it fail here? So if we do this, the ID of the group, ID is string, get, return, if not string, else string, await list channel messages, try refresh, and it's going to run through that real quick. But it didn't do anything as expected. So if I drop a breakpoint here, what is result? Result is an object ID cacheable null null. So we got a Nakama exception, invalid channel ID. So the question is did our channel get saved? Let's go ahead and take a look at Nakama really quick. Chat messages. Group chat, no messages found. So our group chat just doesn't exist. So that's not great. So that means something went wrong with how we initialized our group chat, I think. Okay, so I figured out the issue. So basically, when we do our list channel messages async, we need to actually do our current channel.id instead. So when we do our join chat asynchronous, we pull back a channel, and that's the channel that we're currently in. And basically, we need to go and list those message right here. And then I have a section here for messages in result, messages. If the message content does not contain an empty, so if for some reason a message gets in there that's empty, when we try to parse it, it's going to break. So I have this little if statement right here that basically just checks to see if it's empty. If it is, ignore it, and there's no reason to have it. So now if I hit play, you'll notice that when I come in here and I hit submit, I list my groups, I select my groups, and I join my group chat, you'll see I pull back those messages. And that's one of the big cool features of Nakama, is that it keeps track of all of that information, because this is after we removed and rebooted the system, right? It actually
came back with the proper messages. That's basically what persistence does right here. This true right here causes it to be saved and to be reusable later. That's one of the big cool advantages here. So now the question is, okay, so how do I do peer-to-peer messaging? Well, it's not technically peer-to-peer, but how do I send messages directly to a user? Well, again, it's relatively simple. If we come into our stuff here, we Control C, Control V, join group chat. And then instead of join group chat, we have a join direct chat. I go ahead and grab our, where is it? Join group chat right here. And I change this to join direct chat like that. We can come in here, disconnect, right click, connect, and connect. Now, in order to do a direct chat, it's actually relatively easy. It's exactly the same as everything else. You come in here, you go join chat room right here, copy it, come down here, paste. Well, really, actually, we probably should just grab this, to be honest. It's going to save us a bit of trouble. So if we paste this guy in here, change the channel type to direct message like that. Instead of having a selected group ID, we need to grab the user ID. In terms of persistence, we want to keep true. We also want to keep false for hidden. But for this join chat asynchronous, we can go ahead and pass in a user ID. So we need to get our actual user identifier. And the easiest way to do that is by using the get users asynchronous call. If you remember, we did that earlier. So we'll just say var users is equal to await client dot get users asynchronous, and then we'll pass in our session. And we need to pass in a ID pack string array and then the user name that we're going to be passing in. So in our case, I think if we take a look at our user interface, we have a chat name. We could probably just take that. I think that will work. So for the chat name, what I'll do is I'll just pull this guy, which is chat name. So we'll come into our script, we'll hit $chat name dot text. And then that should bring back our users. So now we know that it's going to bring back one user and that's it. So since it's going to bring back one user, we can basically just do if users dot size is greater than 0, then we can do the rest of this bit of code here. And then we could just pass in and say users bracket 0.id. And that'll pass back a user ID that we can actually communicate with. So now in theory, this should work. And of course, as always with theory, it doesn't always work, but we'll see. So we'll submit as test, we'll submit as test2, and then we'll go test2, join direct chat. It's mad, and that's because users came back, let's see, with an array. It looks like it's users.users, so that's my fault. So we'll say users.users, and I should probably just do this as result then. Or perhaps user result, because we don't want to mess with our current code down here that has result already. We'll just do that. And then for this, we'll just say user result dot users bracket 0, because we now know that we need to go a little bit deeper than what we expected. So now if we go ahead and submit test2, join direct chat, now we're in a direct chat. If we go into test2 and we go to test, join direct chat, we pass test in. Okay, so I think I figured out what's going on here. So I commented this out just so we could check it out. But what I think is going on here is, remember in our previous tutorial, we had test block test2. And because they're blocked, they can't send them messages. So it completely stops them from being able to communicate with each other. And that's why this is happening. So if I remove this,
Let's see what happens if I do that. So we'll go ahead and come in here. We'll Control S, we'll hit play, and then we'll try it one more time. So we'll do submit, test 2, submit, test, join direct chat, test 2, join direct chat, test. We will send a message, and that will now work. Now, the reason why this didn't work was because test had test 2 blocked. So since they're blocked, they can't communicate at all. So that's the reason why this happened. So it was my fault, but that was basically the reasoning. Now, if we go ahead and stop this, and then we come in here and uncomment this with Control K, and then we run this bad boy, in theory, we should be able to see our previous communications. So test 2, join direct chat, and you will see there's all of our messages. Now I'm getting a little bit additional messages, mostly because of my testing, not because of a problem with Nakama. That's just something that I did on my own by accident. But you can see here are all of the messages that we have. So that's basically how you do messages back and forth inside of Nakama. Hey guys, Editor Mitch here. So something that you should do once you do your chat system and you get that guy settled, when you have this chat right here, what you should also do is subscribe to everybody's channels. So if you have friends or some kind of channel system, you need to subscribe to that channel. So what I'm going to do is come up to my on login button down. So when I press my login, I'm going to go ahead and come in here and I'm going to have sub to friend channels like that. Now I'm going to scroll down and I have a chat section in here. So you can see we have our little group section right here. We scroll down, we have a chat room code right here. So this is our chat section. So right here, just somewhere in this general section here, we're going to go ahead and add in the ability to sub to the friend channels, right? So we'll say func sub to friends channels like that. And then what I'm going to do is say var result is equal to await client dot list friends asynchronously. And I'm going to pass in my session and that'll just bring in all of my friends. And then from here, I can go ahead and subscribe to their channels. So for I in result dot friends like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and say var type is equal to Nakama socket dot channel type dot direct message. And then I can go ahead and pull back my chat that I have so I can sub to that channel. So I can say await socket. Oh, I have sub to friends, sub to friend. So we'll do friend channels and that'll fix that little function not found. So socket.join chat async, and then I'll go ahead and pass an i.user.id, comma, type, comma, true, comma, false. And that'll basically allow me to pull those sockets back. Now, this should return, if I remember correctly, a channel. So if we actually hit Control F, you can see we have a couple of them. You can see we have current channel right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and say chat channels is equal to await socket. Okay. And actually, now that I think about this, let's do this. So we'll do channel. Let's do this. Channel is equal to this. And then we can come down here and just say chat channels bracket i.user.id. Actually, I wonder if I should do .username instead. That way it's just a more common value. And then I could go is equal to channel like that. And that'll basically hook our channel here to this object. So I'll say var, and then there we go. And chat channels doesn't exist yet, but now we have a key value pair here that we can use. And that's going to be really big for us if we want to use those channels later. So now I can go ahead and grab chat channels. I can go up to the top, var chat channels like that. And I can actually come in here, and now I have access to all of my chats right here. So if I have like 100 chats, I could actually pull back the channel information and switch between them really easily using this object. And I'll probably go through that later, but it's a way to extend our chat to be a bit more useful, if that makes sense. So if you think about it like this, basically what we could do is we could add in a tab container right here, make that guy full screen, and then underneath that tab container, you can actually switch between different tabs, right? And I think what we could do, and again, this is going to be a lot of coding, and then we could actually come in here, make this about, I don't know, about this big, give or take. And then we could put that chat text underneath here, right? And this would allow us to, in theory, do this and then change the title of this to username, like so. You can see here, here's the username. So what we could do, at least in theory, is on startup, once we subscribe to all of those channels, it would just fill this out. So for instance, if we come in here and we go and subscribe to those friend channels. So if we grab this guy, bring it down here, come in here, and then basically just say tab container, or I guess it's going to be $ tab container dot add child, and then we can add a child of this text box here. So basically, if we add a child of this text box, and I'm just kind of thinking this through as I talk to you guys, so my apologies for how confusing this is probably going to end up being. But we could do a text box. So this is going to be a text edit. So var current edit is equal to text edit dot new, like that. And then we could pass in our current edit like that to make that a object. And then we could do current edit dot name is equal to our username right here. So I dot user dot username, like so. And then when we log in, you'll see that I'm going to have a tab right here called username. But if I click on login, and it's mad at me, so you can see invalid index test 2. So let's take a look at this. So create chat null. So this is a null object. It needs to be a type dictionary. That's my guess, at least. So we'll come in here. We'll say colon equals bracket bracket like that, and that'll make it into an object. And now if we try it, it should in theory work. There we go. And you can see we have test2 and username right here. And that means that we would be able to go and fetch any messages that we want from that person. So if we were to go in here, sub to friend chat, go down here, we could actually go and fetch that person's information. If you remember, we actually do that right here. We pull back the messages right here. So what we could do is if we list channel messages asynchronously, we should probably pull this out and just do list messages like that. Do this. It's going to want to have a current channel.id. So current channel like that. And then we could come in here and just do current edit dot text is equal to list messages, and then we have to pass in our current channel. So that would be our, let's see, channel right here. So channel. So we'll pass in that channel, and that'll pass back all of the text in that channel. This is a coroutine, so it must be called with await. That makes sense. So await. And then instead of doing this, we'll just return that value. So we'll just say var text. Oh, I guess I'm going to have to create a text. So var text is equal to quote. And then we'll need to just do text plus equals blah. And then we can just return our text like that. And then that will return text right here. And then instead of doing this, when we join a chat group, we can just go $, or we could just go in here and add in a panel like what we're doing right here. You can see how we're joining chat asynchronously. So we really could just grab this section here and just paste it right here on this guy, like so. And that'll basically solve that problem right there. Now, technically, this is duplicated code, and that's probably not the most ideal situation, but that's probably okay for right now. And instead of doing our chat channel username, what we would do is we would do something like current channel and then selected group. So selected group.id. The current name would also be the selected group ID. I guess we'd probably want to come up with a better way. Maybe we could just call it current group, right? Instead of the name, like so. And then we could probably come in here and list our current channel as well. And in theory, that would work. So now if we hit play, in theory, we would have a tabular messaging system. Now we can hit submit, and there's all of our messages right there. And we have different tabs that we can work with. And I think if I do test, it's probably going to get mad at me. Invalid index ID. That makes sense because current channel.id. Current channel is null. My guess is because I'm not in a channel yet. So that would make sense. So what we would need to do is we need to make our tab container handle that when the tab gets switched, which I think there is a on tab changed right here. So we would have to keep track of which index our stuff is actually located in. So I think that that's okay. So we could actually just do this on tab changed like so, and then we could just keep track of what index we're on. When the user changes their tab, it kind of keeps track of that. So how I would do that is if I go into where the tabs are located, so you can see here. And I know this is probably a little bit confusing, and my apologies. I'm just kind of working through it with you guys, but so you can see right here, we have a channel selected group ID current channel. So what we could do is when we do our tab container, we could actually connect our tab changed event and then bind the user ID to it. So what we could do is we could do $Pannel tab container dot add child like so. But we could do dot tab changed dot connect, and then we can put on tab changed, and I guess I should do on chat tab changed dot bind, and I can pass in the selected group ID like so. And then we could come in here and just say func on chat tab changed like so. And then we could pass in int tab, comma, or I guess it would be, I'm sorry, I'm trying to code in C#, tab colon int, comma, and then we could pass in group ID or channel ID like that. And that would pass in that value like that. And there we go. So what that's going to do is allow us to print tab, comma, channel ID like that. And that will give us the ability to work with this. Now, when we join a chat group, that's how we have to handle that. But when we do our sub to friends channel, we got to do that as well. So that way we can do it on both. So now if I hit play, in theory, if I do submit, it's mad at me, unable to get index ID on base nil. That's because selected group is null. And that's because I'm dumb and I chose the wrong bind. It's going to be i.user.username. So we'll grab that and paste it right here. Let's try that one more time. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go submit. And it once again is going to be mad. A non-existent function bind on base int. So it's mad about, let me see. I think I might have figured it out. What if I do this instead? And then I have to go and find my other bind, which should be, I think I need to put it out inside the signal connection. So I'm binding this to the signal and not to the connection function. I think that's what's doing it. So let's try that. Let's grab the other one. So you can see how this one connect dot bind. Instead, I think I need to bind and then do that. And then I should be able to make that work. And I believe it is index and then channel ID. So let's try that. Let's see what that does. There we go. And then if I click test 2, it should have displayed test 2 right there. So that's perfect. So what that means is that we can go current channel is equal to chat channels bracket channel ID, like that. And then what that means is now we should be able to, since we're binding those parameters, I should be able to send a message and it should just take it in theory. Invalid get text on null. That's fine. My guess is that's because chat text box doesn't exist anymore, because now we're going the opposite direction, right? So we're sending a message. If you see here, if you look at the content, message is test, type is 0. And if you take a look at this object, it has the channel ID, sender ID, user ID 1, 2, and then user name. Now, if we take a look at our channel objects right here, so chat channels, you can see test2 is our parameter here. That's going to be our player's information, if that makes sense. So I think we could probably get away with, since this is going to give us test as its content and the message is going to say sender ID is right here, the channel ID is right here. I wonder if we should pull, because it has a username right here, but that's not going to hook us up to our channel code. So I'm curious if we need to change how we send our data across. So we send our data, we're sending the message and then the current channel ID. Okay, so I think I know what I'm going to do here. So we're actually going to change up a little bit how we're doing this. And the reason why, I'll show you. If we take a look at right here, we're passing in our current channel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and pass in, instead of just a current channel, I'm going to pass in channel like that, colon current channel. And then I'm also going to pass in a label value, just so I can have the label if I need it for whatever reason. And the label in the selected group ID will probably just be group chat, because it really doesn't need to have anything special. And if we go to the other one, so channel chats, we go to the other one, which is right here. So this one needs to go .channel, because we're making that adjustment real quick. You can see right here, we're doing channel. So you can see we'll need to make that adjustment. And then we'll just copy this guy right here. We'll paste it like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and pass in Control X, channel like that. And that will allow us to have an object that has a label here. And then for the actual label itself, I'll just pass this guy in like that. And then I'll just do channel.id like that. And then if we have this, then we should be able to use this to pull back that channel information instead. And I know what you're thinking. That doesn't sound like it's going to work, but it's probably not going to work. So let's go ahead and say on tab changed, bind selected group ID. If I do on tab changed, bind channel ID like that. And then when we produce our message here, we're going to be fetching back this on channel message, parse the content. And right here, we will have a chat box. So you can see we have chat box. It'll be tab container dot get node like that. Content dot. And if we take a look at what our message is going to be right here, see how we have our write message asynchronous? We'll just say content.id like so. And then here we can pass in quote ID colon and fetch back our channel information. So chat channels like so, channel ID. So it'd be current channel dot ID right here. Like that. And that will pass back our channel information. And then from here, we could just go dot label. And that should allow us to fetch back the correct node and set the proper information right there. And in theory, that would work. So let's try that and see how that works. So if we hit submit, test 2, test, send, you'll see that we now get our test information. So this is a test message like that. And we click go. You'll see this is a test message just like that. And that's basically how we can make a tabbed system as well that should actually work for our chat system. So now that we have a basic chatting system that fully works, let's talk about how we can host this out on the cloud, because the best way to get your networking working is by hosting it out on the cloud. That means that you have to pay a server to host that information. So if you want a multiplayer game, you need to actually pay to host that data somewhere, right? And that is where DigitalOcean comes in. DigitalOcean is a pretty great toolkit that will allow you to host your projects right here on their servers. And it's relatively cheap. If you take a look at the pricing, you can see they have some pretty cheap droplets. So if you wanted a cheap like $5 server to host your game, that's more or less what this is for, is it allows you to actually host stuff out in the cloud for relatively cheap. And I will drop a link in the description below that if you guys use it, it will give me credits to be able to host my own stuff. Now, I will be hosting stuff for this tutorial here. I'll be giving you guys an IP address and you guys can use it for your testing, but just know that if you want to go out into production, you need to use your own server. And something to keep in mind, you can host your own server as well locally, but it's a lot harder. It's not as safe and people can hack into your networks and things like that. So it's really nice just to use something like this to host it for you so that you can get your game out there and get people playing it and playing together. So let's go ahead and create an account or log in, whichever one you guys have. So I'm going to go ahead and log in real quick. So this is DigitalOcean. And basically the nice thing here is this is your dashboard, right? So this is the DigitalOcean dashboard. So here is where you can manage all of your resources. Now you can see up here, you have your profile information, and then you have whatever droplets you have. Now in DigitalOcean, droplets are considered machines, okay? And you can see that they have all sorts of really cool features here. They have spaces, which is basically like storage. They have database stuff. So if you actually come in here, you can see that you can spin up databases right here. So if you're using Nakama, you can actually store your database outside of your droplet and allow for load balancing. They actually have a full built-in load balancing system right here, spinning up a load balance. So you can actually choose different data regions and pass data in between different regions and things like that by using their load balancers. Now, that being said, that's way beyond the scope of this tutorial, but that's what I'm trying to say is DigitalOcean has a bunch of stuff for you to use that can help you get up to the point where you can use Nakama Premium and actually have them handle a lot of that for you. But this is a good way to kind of get started into that, if that makes sense. So let's go ahead and talk about how to create a droplet. So let's go up here to the upper right hand corner, click on create, click on droplet. You could do an app platform. That's technically going to be cheaper, but it's a lot harder to get everything set up properly. So I'm just going to do a droplet for right now. And so we can pick what region we want our droplet in. So right here, I'm going to choose New York. New York is the closest to me, so we'll choose that. We'll come down here and you could choose an image. Now, if you have a specific image that you're looking for, go ahead and pick it right here. In my case, I'm going to go with Ubuntu, but if you want to, you can also look at the marketplace and you could pick different stuff. So Docker on Ubuntu probably would be a good image to get, or maybe something like LAMP if you're trying to do a LAMP server, or WordPress or something like that. They have so many different droplets that you can actually have at your disposal. And you can see here, you can also do custom images. So if you have an image, you can actually just spin it up and have it work. Now, in my case, I'm going to go with OS Ubuntu. We're going to start from base, even though technically Docker on Ubuntu probably is a better option. So I'm going to go. So I'm going to go with Marketplace Docker on Ubuntu. That's going to save us a lot of trouble and get it all set up for us, right? So all we have to do is get our Docker Compose and then set up our firewall rules and we'll be good to go. So we'll go ahead and add that guy. Now, if you come in here, you can see that you have a bunch of different options for size. Now, it depends on what you're trying to do. And typically, what I tell people is you want to pick the lowest value that you can and +1. So for instance, if you think that your game is going to be really small and not a lot of people are going to play it, then something like the $14 a month one is probably pretty good. If you're looking for something really cheap just for testing, if you go to regular and you kick it over, you can see that you can just do something like the $6 a month one, or even the $4 a month one if you can get away with under 10 gigabytes. If you were to come up here and choose OS Ubuntu, then you could go down to $4 a month at 512 megabytes. Now, once you get down that low, this is basically only used for testing. You want to, at minimum, have $6 a month, the 1 gigabyte, one CPU, just because it's going to allow you to have a lot more flexibility for your project. Now, since I'm doing a marketplace image of, and now, since this is going to be a tutorial, I should probably just do Ubuntu with the 4, because odds are you're not going to have the funding to do this or something like that. So we'll try the 4. We might have to upgrade to 6. We'll see. And then you can see here that you can add a volume, which will allow you to expand your disk space. Now, in our case, we don't need that because it's fine for right now. And you can see that we have authentication. So we have SSH, key, and password. Now, in my case, we're just going to do... So I'm going to set my password right here, and we'll scroll down here. And you can see that we can do improved metrics and monitoring for free. So may as well turn that on. And I don't think we need to do a database cluster here, but we can look at that in the future. So you can see here is our host name right here, which I'll call it YouTube2. Tags, I'm not worried about it. And then you'll see that it has a project right here. Now this project is where it's going to get billed under. So don't worry. It'll just get billed under your account. And then we'll click create droplet. Now, this is going to allow us to have a droplet once it gets built, which should be relatively quick. There we go. You can see it's in the middle of building it, and it is now completed. So it actually created your little droplet right here. So now at this point, once we click into it, you can see here is our YouTube 2 droplet. You can see we have our graphs for our bandwidth, CPU usage, stuff like that. We have access, which allows us to adjust our access to it. We have power, which allows you to turn it off and on. We have volumes, which allow you to have block storage. Resize, which allows you to change how big and strong that droplet is. So you're welcome to go in and actually upgrade this later. So if you need that 1 gig of memory or that 10 gigabyte SSD, right? That's all stuff that right here is available. And then you can come in here and go into networking. You can change your network IP address, your firewall stuff. You can come in here and back it up. You can get snapshots of it. So that way if you need this droplet to be perfect and snapshotted for backup purposes, this is what this is for. It allows you to basically go back to that point in time and apply it to your image. So the nice thing is if you create snapshots and your stuff gets hacked or something like that, you can roll back to that snapshot and stop that hack from happening. Kernel is something that you're not going to be using, but basically it allows you to upgrade your Linux kernel. History is the history of it. Destroy allows you to destroy that droplet. Tags allows you to tag it. And recovery allows you to try to recover your droplet. Now that we've gone through all of this, let's go up to our console here and click on that. You'll see that that's going to pop up a droplet console. Now, this is pretty cool because you actually have a full Linux machine here. So if you don't know Linux, now's the time to learn because Linux is very important to know. So first things first, inside of Ubuntu, to install Docker, what you need to do is you need to type sudo apt-get update, and that's going to update all of your mirrors out there. And then we need to go in and actually add the repository because Docker doesn't actually exist in the repo by default. So we'll say sudo apt-get install ca-certificates curl, like that. And that's going to go ahead and make sure that we have curl installed. And then we'll sudo install -m 0755-d /etc/apt/key rings. And then we're going to go in and curl out to the Docker Linux Ubuntu. I will actually leave these commands in the comments below, by the way, so you guys can use it. But sudo curl -fss-l fs capital SL https://download.docker.com/linux/ubuntu/gpg-o space /etc/apt/key rings/docker.asc. And what that's going to do is it's going to actually create a Docker GPG apt repo for you. So that way you can actually go and install Docker. And then we need to allow access to it. So sudo chmod a+r/etc/apt/key rings docker asc. And that basically allows us to execute and use that data that's right there. So basically, Linux is a permission system that is very, very aggressive. So you need to make sure that you keep that stuff under wraps, if that makes sense. So Linux by default does not give you permissions to anything, and you have to give yourself permissions to it. So that's kind of what we're doing right here. So then we can come in here and finally fire off our apt resources. Now, this command is going to be really difficult to do. So we'll do echo/enter, and that's going to allow us to kind of get a actual script going here. So we'll say quote deb space bracket arch equals $ dpkg -- print - architecture signed by equals /etc/apt/key rings /docker/.asc bracket https://download.docker.com/linux/ubuntu. And then we're going to put that in $/etc/os-release, and we're going to echo our version code name. And we're going to pull back the stable version like that. We're going to pass in a pipe, and we're going to pipe that into sudo t/etc/apt/source.list.d/docker.list greater than sign /dev/null. And I know that that's a terrible command, but basically all this command is doing is we're going and we're going deb all of this information, and we're piping all this info into our sources list right here for Docker. And that's basically all we're doing here. I know that it seems really confusing, but that's basically what we're doing here. Now I'm going to double check this command because I just spotted a mistake right here where I did equal instead of --. So let me double check this command and make sure that I'm happy with it. So we have $$depackage, our print architecture. We're going to sign it by our Docker ASC file, and we're going to go out to our Docker Linux Ubuntu, and we're going to pull back the OS release. And I misspelled echo right here. You can see I made a mistake. As always, you make a million mistakes when you do this. So echo. So that's ECHO. And then we have our version code name that we are echoing into our release. We're pulling back the stable edition. We're going to pipe that into sudo t right here into our Docker lists, and we're greater than /dev null, and we'll run that. Command ECO is not found. That's because I spelled echo wrong. So I guess it's a good thing that it failed immediately. So ECHO, and we will try running it. Hopefully this doesn't blow up. All right, so we have no such file or directory. So all right, so I think I figured it out. Basically, there was an issue with the command for, I think it was this area here. So don't worry, just copy what I have in my description and just use that, and it will just work for you. So now all I got to do is type sudo apt-get update like that. And that's going to update all of our packages in our repo, and it's going to go and fetch out to the Docker system and pull back the actual Docker packages. So you can see right here, it's actually pulling down that information right there. And then we're going to go ahead and install Docker. So sudo apt-get install docker-ce docker-ce-cli container.io docker-build-plugin. And finally, the most important one of the group, docker-compose-plugin. And that's the big one. That's the one that's actually going to matter for our project for the most part. I mean, the rest of these are obviously important. Docker-ce is the Docker runtime. Docker-ce CLI is the command line interface. The containered is the actual container system. Docker build plugins is to build your own Docker containers, and then Docker Compose allows you to actually compose Dockers based off of a Docker composition file. If you remember before when we talked about how to build Nakama, that was one of the big things that you need to use. So we'll hit enter. It's going to go ahead and try to pull it. It says that it cannot locate the Docker build plugin. My guess is I spelled something wrong here. So let's see. Docker build X plugin. There we go. Hit go, and it should go ahead and download and install Docker. Now we might need to upgrade to the next step up to the 1 GB edition, but we're going to see if we can get away with the $4 a month version first. And if we can't, then we'll upgrade to the $6 a month version, and then we can run our Docker setup here. So we'll see how this works, but we'll go from there. So it looks like it is running. If we type PS, you will see that we have a bash and PS running. So if we type Docker, is it going to pop up? And there we go. So we do have Docker running. So perfect. That's exactly what we want. So now from here, we need to get a Docker compose file onto here. So if we type ls right here, you can see that we have nothing going on. So what we can do is we can type mkdir Nakama, cd Nakama, like that, and that's going to get us into that directory. So mkdir makes the directory, cd Nakama just brings us into the Nakama directory. So now we can come in here and basically compose our Docker file. So if we're lucky, we'll be able to just copy and paste our composition file. So if we go out here, we go to documents and we find our Nakama instance. I believe I have a Nakama server tutorial, docker compose.yaml. So if we open this guy up, you'll see this is what our Docker compose file looks like. You can see right here, this is what it looks like. So if we hit Control A, Control C, and then we go into our web browser here and we type nano docker dash compose.yml, and then we right click paste. It should paste all that data right into here. So that way we don't actually have to set up FileZilla. Because one of the things that's unfortunate is a lot of times if you're doing Godot networking, you need to actually put files up into FileZilla and into the FTP and bring them over to DigitalOcean's to your DigitalOcean droplet. So thankfully we can just copy and paste this and Control X, Y, and it'll be docker compose.yaml. And now from here, we should be able to just get it to run if we're lucky. So what we'll do, come in here and type docker compose up. And you'll see it's going to go ahead and attempt to pull and build our Docker instance right here. Now, we might run out of RAM. It just kind of depends. But hopefully with 512 megs of RAM, it's going to be really tight. I don't know if this is going to work. We're probably going to need a gig. But we can see. So we'll let this run and we'll attempt to run it. And it looks like it might have worked. So what we can do is if we go out to our YouTube 2, we grab our public IP, we go to our Nakama console, and we just put in, actually, I'll just make a new thing, colon, and we'll put in 7351. So 7351, enter. Does it do anything? That's the first question. It doesn't look like it's going to. So now we got to figure out, is it this guy's fault? It looks like this is running. So my question is, server is ready to receive web requests. So it did spin up properly. It started the rule manager properly. So that's good news. Oh, you can see it is just absolutely chugging though. So if we take a look at our YouTube Docker container, let's see. It looks like our CPU utilization is pretty high. Our disk IO is relatively high as well. We probably need to upgrade to have 1 gig of RAM, but at least it is running. So there is that. The question is, so I was able to get it to stop. So what we'll do is we'll close it. We'll go to our YouTube. We'll go over to upgrade droplet. And then we'll go ahead and just upgrade that up to one size larger to the 1 gigabyte edition. So we'll do that. And then we'll click CPU RAM. When it's going to ask us to turn off our droplet. So we'll go up to power. We'll power it off because there's nothing on here anyway. So we can just power cycle it pretty hard. There we go. It's powered down. We'll go to resize and we'll adjust it up one size just to let it be the proper size that it needs to be. We're going to let that run. You'll see it's thinking about it. There we go. And now we got a one size bigger droplet. Now we can go ahead and power cycle that bad boy back on. Let's go into our networking. Let's come down to our firewall and create a firewall. Now the firewall is just going to be test firewall. And what we'll do is we'll have an inbound of SSH. We're also going to allow a custom one, and we're going to allow for 7351. So we'll copy that bad boy and we'll go ahead and paste it like that. And then we'll do the same thing for 7350 as well. And then we're going to allow another one, which is going to be 7351 UDP and 7350 UDP. That way we can have all of our stuff, all of our ducks in a row and everything kind of covered. Now you can see here, all outbound is good and we should be good to go. So we'll go ahead and hit create firewall, and that should create that firewall onto that networking system. So if we go to our droplet, and we go to YouTube 2, you should see right here under our firewall networking, no firewalls are applied to this droplet. So I need to apply this firewall. So let's see if we need droplets. We can choose our droplet, add droplet, and then we will search for YouTube 2. And we'll go ahead and connect it to that droplet. So now that should give our droplet the firewall it needs to do its job. So now we should be able to go to console and fire that up and then hit CD Nakama and then Docker compose up. And in theory, it should run a lot faster, which it is. You can see it's actually firing off just well. The init node was successfully done. Cockroach database is up. So now we're starting to get the proper logs that we expect. So my guess is it had something to do with the lack of RAM that we had. So let's try that. We'll refresh. And there we go. So you can see now we have Nakama running out on our website, which is 198.199.80.118. And you guys, of course, can go to this and use it. So if you type admin password, you can see we have our Nakama instance just like before. And it's exactly the same. So you guys can actually use this for your own project, providing that it doesn't get shut down immediately, because for some reason it gets shut down sometimes and that causes some issues. But that's how easy it is to get this to fire off. Now, and in order to detach, let's hit Control C. We'll stop our Docker connection right here. And you'll see in a second it's going to gracefully stop. So we'll give it a minute to kill everything. We'll hit Docker compose up -- detach. And what that should do is it should allow us to fire this up and be detached. And there you go. So now we're detached. So if we hit PS, you'll see that it's not running. But if I come in here and I refresh, you can see that Nakama is running. If I close this and I refresh, you'll see that Nakama is running, even though we are no longer connected to our Docker instance. So that's how we can actually get that to run without needing to keep that window open. Because if you were to have closed the window when Nakama's running like that previously without running the -- detach, then it would have closed that Docker instance and then your whole project would have been gone. So that's basically how that works. So now if we head out to Godot here, we can come up to here and change this value to our Nakama instance. So if we come in here, you can see here is our Nakama instance right here. So we'll copy that. We'll paste this like so. And then if we hit play, you will see that we can now submit and log in. So you'll see that I have logged in. So now if I take a look at my Nakama instance out here on the web, if I refresh, you'll see that when we go to accounts, I have an account right here, just like as if I was playing the game locally. So this is how that works. And you can come in here and go test 2, and you'll see that if I click name of match, test, join create, test, join create, we just joined our match. And then if the host says start game and then start game, you'll see that we both started our game. Now, something here is broken, but I don't think that that's a Nakama issue. I think that's just a my code issue. So you can see that we are transferring the data as expected here in our Nakama instance. So we do have the presences as expected, but I feel like something here is wonky a little bit. And I think that's because I'm not in the right scene to do this. I think I have to go to gamemanager.tscn. If you remember, this is our game manager here. So let's refresh this guy. Let's try rerunning it. So we'll hit test, test 2, test, join create, test, join create, start game, and you can see that our game is now running not locally anymore. So this will work with your friends across the web. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get one of my friends and I will have him pull my code, and then he will also do this. And I'll show you guys that it does work out on the internet. So I will be right back. Okay, and then hit start game. And as you guys can see right here, my friend and I are both working together and playing the same game at the same time over the internet using our Nakama instance. Now, you can see here that there is a little bit of lag, and I think the reason for that is because we're flooding the actual Nakama instance because it has a bunch of data that it's passing through. So we should probably figure out a better way to optimize this, but at least we have it working for now. So at this point, we've gone through quite a few things. We talked about groups, we talked about chatting, and we talked about how to get our stuff to work out on the internet for our project and allow us to work on multiple networks with each other. So if you like this video, go and hit that like button. Hey, if you dislike this video, go and hit that dislike button because I am here to make content for you guys. This video was a viewer suggested video, so if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below or jump on my GitHub, link is in the description, and put in a service ticket and I'll be more than happy to add it to my list of tutorials for the future. And hey, if you have any questions or comments about this video, go ahead and leave them in the comments below or jump on my Discord, link is in the description, and I'll be more than happy to help you out. But that is all I have for you guys today. So thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you all next time. Thanks.